Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast. Today, we're joined by John Winfrey, Director of IT at Ardmore Enterprises. John, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
It's great having you on. But before we get too far in, a quick word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by cyberlinks.com. That's cyberlynx.com. Do you know if a hacker's in your system? Most people and most companies don't until it's too late and the hacker's already done damage. A hacker's job is to bypass your security, so companies need a way of knowing when someone's gotten past theirs. That's where Cyberlinks comes in. We've partnered with the best cybersecurity companies in the world to be able to provide our clients with the best solutions at the best prices. So whether it's managed SIM, SOC, EDR, MDR, XDR, you name it, we'll help you find the best solution at the best price. Find out more at cyberlinks.com. That's cyberlynx.com. And now back to our show. John, for those who aren't familiar, can you tell us about Ardmore Enterprises and your role there as Director of IT?
Sure. Ardmore Enterprises is a small nonprofit organization in Lanham, Maryland, and what we do is we support the lives and development of folks that fall into the category of intellectual and developmental disabilities. Ardmore has several houses that we support, and those folks in a living situation. We also support them in employment and pre-employment development and preparation. We also have a community services organization that spends time with people that are outside of our residential facilities, just to kind of help them develop their personal lives and whatever support that they need to live a fruitful life.
That's amazing. I mean, that is about as a wonderful a mission as an organization can have. It's funny because my mom, it was as she had lost her vision in one eye and it damaged the other because of cancer later on, and it was just so. She was an avid reader, and and this was going back now. I guess 25 years ago. And that's really, it's such a challenging thing, suddenly becoming disabled in some way. And, there's, at the time, technology was still emerging. It wasn't where it is today. And so, the impact that has on people, I think everybody knows somebody that has some sort of a challenge like that. And so it's wonderful that there are groups like Ardmore out there, helping people. So I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Well, actually, it's ironic that you say that, because one of the interesting factoids is that the Department of Labor, I believe it was, did a study a number of years ago, and redo this quite frequently. And the community that falls under the term disabled is the fastest growing dynamic in the American population, and a lot of that is due to situations such as that, or just simply following. As a person gets older, their bodies change, and their need, particularly for technology, to help them to live a fruitful life is something that is expanding. So organizations like Ardmore and other organizations like ours that support different disabled groups is an absolutely needed and valued commodity in today.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's really fantastic, and I think that intersection of kind of technology and the physical world and helping people, whether it's the the visually impaired or you name it, that we're seeing these advances where you can help people who can't move at all, and now suddenly technology can do the moving for them, which is truly just fascinating stuff. And so I think where technology can help is really interesting. But speaking of technology and whatnot, and I love kind of the origin stories and how people got into technology and how they got to where they are today in the industry. Could you tell us a little bit about your journey? How you found your love for technology and how you got to where you are today?
Absolutely. So mine goes back a little ways, 30 years ago or so. I've always been a kind of a little bit of a geek. Enjoyed playing with technology. One of my first exposures to things that were purely geek was I picked up in a yard sale an old Commodore 64 with the tape drive and everything else.
Yep.
Yes, I am officially old. And one of the coolest things that I did with that was I learned how to program, and I simply programmed a clock, and that was kind of my initial introduction to it. At the time, I worked as a restaurant manager, and one thing led to another, and I found myself without employment, and I had a wife and two kids, so I ended up going to school. There was a program. I lived in Little Rock, Arkansas at the time. There was a program through the Federation of the Blind there in Arkansas, and the school was Lions World Services for the Blind. And what they did was they taught mainframe programming, and the program was sponsored by the IRS. And I went through that program, ended up going to work for the IRS, and that's how I ended up in the Washington D.C. area. Worked for the IRS for 5 or 6 years, and was offered employment outside of the IRS with a DC consulting firm. Abacus Technology was the name of it. From there, I ended up going to work for Microsoft, and I spent 20 years at Microsoft and learned a lot about and just kind of put helped build that passion around technology, and left Microsoft, and then it ended up at Ardmore, and my position at Ardmore is kind of an interesting one in that my primary daytime job is operational management, making sure that all the systems are working, and I oversee the support desk and all the operational stuff. But in addition to that, I also am responsible for kind of the forward-looking piece of it. Ardmore being an organization, a nonprofit that supports the IDD community, is one that and it introduces technology in a lot of different ways. And so my role at Ardmore is not just operational, but kind of forward-looking to what technologies, AI, adaptive equipment, adaptive software, all of those things that will impact and better the lives of the people that we work for.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So there's a few things I want to dive into there because it seems like in your story, you you joined that program with the FBI because you were blind.
I
It was
did
for the
that,
blind. So
and it was IRS actually. It was
IRS, that's right. IRS,
yeah,
sorry. I knew it
yeah.
was one of those three letters. I was so close. Um,
Absolutely.
so that's fantastic. So how do you like as I was saying to my mom was as she lost her vision and she could I guess there were varying shades of that, right?
Right.
There are many degrees of blind, and hers just continued to deteriorate to where you could kind of make out people a little bit and see some light, but that's a tough thing. It, how do you how does one deal with or you in particular the challenges of of impaired vision in a world where it's so in technology there's so much information that you've got to consume. Obviously the technology is helping you with that, but I mean kind of walk us through that because I think that's fascinating. A lot of people don't get the firsthand experience, but to be able to be successful in this I think is a great case study for everybody to kind of hear.
I'll tell you. So there's two pieces of that. There's two facets to that question. The first is just the functional doing the job, and I will say that when I first started in IT after leaving Lions World and went to work for the IRS, it was accessible technology was not a thing. we were looking at Windows 3 and 3.11, and in the idea of building in accessibility into software was still years ahead of us.
Yep.
So there was a lot of manual assistance, magnifying glasses, very large monitors. I remember the equipment that that was first purchased for me when I went to work for the IRS. And remembering back that this is 1992, 93 time frame,
Yep.
that we were still working with CRT TV, monitors.
Yeah.
And my monitor was 31-inch monitor. There was no magnification at the time, so it literally was this very huge monitor that took up most of my desk.
Yeah.
And then as technology began to evolve, that monitor turned into a smaller monitor with what the first evolution of the magnifier that's currently built into Windows, and that made things so much better. The other piece to it was not technology driven. There was a lot of mindset, because the persons with disabilities, the life of a person with a disability today is so much different than it was in the early 90s and even before.
Yeah.
One of the things that when I went through the program, which was a very progressive kind of program at the time, what I remember when I was interviewed, there was a question that was asked, not to me directly. It was, I found out about it later, was, well, he's blind, but he can still walk down, he doesn't need a cane. He doesn't have a dog. He doesn't have anything like that. How are we going to function with this? And there was not a real good understanding of how that interaction with someone with a disability could function in a professional office space, and regardless of whether it's technology or not. So,
Yeah.
and then you see that evolution of technology, and now there's an entire industry out there now that are building accessible technologies, and that people can use. One of my roles at Ardmore, as a matter of fact, is we recently we're in the process. We've recently opened, but it's evolving an accessibility lab where we have partnered with some accessible software and hardware developers that we highlight as part of our lab. We bring in people that we work with, but eventually we'll bring in people outside of Ardmore to come in, look at the technology, identify things that'll help them with their life, and then help them go through the process of getting it through the varying government or whatever means. So that whole evolution from where I started in 92 to where it is today is an entirely different experience from then to now. We still have a mindset challenge in the industry, but the technology has really, really, really went leaps and bounds from where we were then to where we are today.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the mindset challenge. Walk me through that. What's the what's that look like, and what can we do to help you to kind of fix that? Yeah.
So I think that there's and I don't want this to sound as if there's any misintent or anything.
Sure.
Particularly when I first began in this business, there was a great deal of just, I've never worked with somebody that was blind or otherwise challenged.
Yep.
And they just didn't know how to work, and as I introduced myself to that organization, and subsequent, there were other people that came through as well, that mindset started to change. We still do today. And one of my previous jobs at Microsoft, I was the Section 508, which is the governmental regulation for accessibility. I was the coordinator for my organization, and we worked with private companies as well as government entities. And one of the challenges is to explain and to identify ways that when we introduce a person with a particular challenge, that technology can help them to be productive and can do their job. And there's in some of the studies that have come out, Gardner has done a study, I believe, that highlights the value of having a person with that kind of challenge in an organization. They tend to be more loyal to the organization. They tend to be, their length of service is typically longer. There's a whole myriad of reasons why that mindset has shifted to from a position of, I don't know how I'm going to be able to work with this person if they can't see, to being, wow, this is now an asset to our organization because they're able to accomplish these things and introduce the not intangibles that an organization is looking for.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And is it so? It's really, I think you're saying it's more of a matter of experience that people,
I
you know,
believe so, yeah.
yeah, they just haven't, a lot of people haven't had that experience with it. And as that becomes more and more prevalent, then that will help, shift and change things. I think that's beautiful and wonderful. Let's it's interesting because I think that for a lot of people kind of getting into IT. We obviously focus a lot on IT and on this
Mhm.
podcast, but and security. But I think for a lot of people, I think technology, is a really interesting industry because it tends
Mhm.
to lean towards or attract a lot of people who are um, generally, I think, very geeky. And I
Mhm.
think we tend to like that term. We adopt it. It's not. I think early on that was people. It was more of a slur, if you will, almost. So
Absolutely.
computer geek, and I was like, and I think, yeah, I think most have come to see that as a badge of honor. We've taken that word back, and I think because we tend to gravitate towards or attract the geeks who love the technology, they tend to be more introverted. There tend to be fewer extroverts in technology. But the interesting part is there are still plenty of those, and I think that leadership and team building becomes such an important part of any organization, and especially in IT and cybersecurity. It's something that I think is, I don't want to say it's more challenging than others because I don't know. I don't know all the industries. I don't live there, but I think it's interesting because of the type of people that are generally, drawn to technology. I'm curious your take on leadership and team building in the industry.
So I think it is interesting. I think there is a community that is naturally built around the geeks in the world, and you're right, that term has gone from being an insult to being a badge of honor now. As a matter of fact, I see on resumes now that they were the official geek of their organization,
That's
and
right.
so it is interesting, that evolution. But I think because they are part of a community, we are part of a community of people that have a particular uh, uh, interest, that I think that there's a natural building there. When you start talking about organizational team building as it relates to technology, there's a couple of ways to look at that. I think one, you're still building a community around a skill set, and I think that that's natural. You'll find plumbers and electricians; they have a community unto themselves. Technicians and IT people have a natural magnet to, bringing them together, that they can build a community there. The thing that is drives kind of that team building within a technology environment is challenge, and I'm sure that this exists in others as well. But the interesting thing that around a technician or a technical IT person, it's a combination of science and art, right? You're creating something. You're taking something from a brain, from a thought, to a functional whatever it is.
Yeah.
So and that in and of itself, the ability to share and to build around that process, that life cycle, is something I think that makes our group kind of unique. And from a leadership perspective, we as leaders in IT, I think that one of the biggest challenges um, is to continually provide that challenge, that here's the target, here are the things that we want to accomplish in a very kind of global perspective. You can't go in and say, I need you to build X, Y, and Z. You need to give them an idea and then say, okay, go figure this out. I had a team meeting yesterday where we're looking at a project, and the one of the guys on the team, extraordinarily talented individual, and instead of saying, I want you to go build this and this is how it's going to look, I say, I want to accomplish this. Go figure out how to do that and bring it back to me, and then let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Being able to do that, I think you accomplish a couple of things. One, the team of people that are going to come together to build that has a sense of accomplishment, has a mission that they're trying to accomplish, which in and of itself builds the team. But from a leader perspective, to understand what is that motivator for that individual, what triggers that individual or that group of individuals, and then feed into that is the real talent of the leader, is being able to do that and identify what that means for every individual, because not every trigger is going to be there's going to be different triggers for different people.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really smart point, and I really like it because there's so many things that go into that, into simply being a good enough leader to say that and do that. So many people have ego issues, let's say, that where they want to be the smartest person in the room. They feel
Absolutely.
like to be the leader, they have to be the best. It has to be their idea and it has to be done their way, and they're going to, kind of command it from Mount Olympus. And if they decree it, then it's for everybody else to implement it. And I think when you compare those two models, those two approaches, it's so obvious that one is going to get buy-in from your team so much more. They've got ownership in it. They care about it. They're going to do better with it. They've got more incentive, personal investment in it than if it's, oh, here are the tasks. I want you to do this, do this. Ugh, okay. I mean, we're not automatons.
Absolutely.
We like technology. We don't want to be technology, right? We're not good at just executing. We're still humans. So no, I think
Well,
that's brilliant.
there's a couple other points there too that need to be, and that is, you make a really good point a second ago about, the ego of it, because, when you allow people the creativity to build something, there is that's my baby kind of mentality, and that's not necessarily bad, but the when it becomes it's not a team baby, if you
Yeah.
will, creation, it is mine, then that's where it becomes a little bit of a challenge. As
Yeah.
a leader, the key in that is to make sure that that individual, in my case, the meeting I had yesterday, he has ownership of it, but the encouragement of bringing in other people and other buy-in and other contributors to it, then it becomes a team property and not an individual property. And I think that kind of helps to get around that this is mine and it's only mine and you got to stay away from it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point because that's also it's easy to get caught up in that when you've built something and whatever it is, that is the individual baby and you want to take care of it versus the team baby. So I think that's a really great point. And all too often it gets overlooked. Um so let's talk about, I think Ardmore is such a great example of an organization with a great mission that is kind of doing good in the world, right? Making the world a better place,
Absolutely.
which is fantastic. So I'd like to kind of dive into that a little bit in how, that's being done, and what people can do to, kind of, is there anything people can do to participate and help with that, in terms of, the whatever it is some way of serving and being a part of it.
Absolutely. So Ardmore is just like every other nonprofit, and I joke with our vendors that'll contact me and they're trying to sell us something, and the first thing I have to tell them is you need to understand we're a nonprofit. We're a small organization, which by definition means that we're poor church mice, and so that is always a challenge for us. Ardmore, given our mission, we are also very tied to governmental, Medicaid and Medicare kind of things,
Yeah.
and that's a little volatile to say, where we are right now. There are opportunities. Ardmore is always looking for, from a technology perspective. I am absolutely, one of the biggest parts of my job is to find partners that will work with us to help push the technology. We're Ardmore is we're entering into a project here, building our residences, building a smart home and implementing smart home technologies to help build out the residential environments. I had mentioned before our accessibility lab, to where we want to start identifying things that will help people in their lives, in their employment lives, in their personal lives, whatever. That the technology that'll help to facilitate those. So partnerships with other technology companies, that's always a huge piece. There's the personal side of things as well. Ardmore, as a matter of fact, here in the next few weeks, one of our bigger fundraisers is we're holding a golf tournament where we have partners out there, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say who they are, but Verizon
Go
is,
for it. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
Verizon is a huge partner of ours, and their contribution to the technology piece of it, to the just a simple monetary through the golf tournament and other mechanisms. Those are always important for us to build relationships with. From an individual perspective, there's opportunities for people to work with us to help, on an individual level, the people that we support, and that people that we work for. So there's a myriad of opportunities. I would encourage anyone to go out to www.ardmoreenterprises.org and learn about us, because and we're not the only one in certainly not in Maryland, but there are other organizations throughout the country, throughout the world, that do what we do, and with governmental budgetary situations as they are, this is a challenging time for all organizations like ours. So we highly encourage volunteerism. It is something that is the lifeblood of any nonprofit, but particularly specifically ours.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, and we'll certainly link to that, in the notes below and everything, so people can find you guys, because I think what you're doing is fantastic, and if in any way that people can help with that and make the world a better place, by all means, they absolutely should. Um, John, this has been absolutely, fantastic. I've really enjoyed having you on. But before we go, can you tell us, everybody, where they can find out more about you? Because I will definitely link Ardmore, but where can they find out more about you in Ardmore?
Well, I mentioned Ardmore's website, so
Yep.
you can certainly find me and us there. I have all the normal stuff, on LinkedIn, and other social media, and I'm happy to answer any questions that if someone has an idea or a thought, happy to have that conversation. If someone's interested in partnering with us on a technology perspective, certainly interested in that conversation. And they can reach me. My email address is jwinfrey@ardmoreenterprises.org, and that's probably the best way to get in touch with me.
Fantastic. John, well, thanks again for coming on the show today. And until next time,
I really appreciate it. And I really enjoy this. Thank you for the opportunity.
thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.